So, good evening and welcome to This Is Why We Dig. Tonight we're joined by the wonderful Andrew Green in Pleasantland. I'm Jo.
And I'm Jordan.
Hello. Right, I'm passing it over to the fellas. This is the gardening stream, in case anyone didn't know, and the fellas are going to be essentially hosting tonight. So, over to you, lads.
That was a lovely intro. That was very smooth. I'm not used to such smoothness. Certainly Andrew isn't after our last showing.
Hello, everyone.
Itash has asked a question, straight up. I don't know why I said it like that weird fellow out of the Moneyball or whatever the hell it was called. Have you ever seen that film?
No.
It's that old-looking geezer. He plays a Slavic fella. He says, "Pay the man his money." I don't know why that came up. Anyway,
What film's this?
Moneyball. It's a film. I'm sure it's Moneyball. I'm trying to think now. Basically, it was a film about this baseball team. They only went with statistics, and eventually they won, even though theoretically they shouldn't have.
No, it's not. It's one of the few films I haven't seen, but it sounds good.
Oddly enough, it's one of the few films I have seen. It was purely because it was on a bloody aeroplane. I didn't have bugger all else how I fancied watching, so I thought, sport. Fair enough. Anyway, do we put our stuff on BitChute? 3 times we have tried to put stuff on BitChute. I tried to have the auto-uploading thing going. No time has it worked. We don't know why. We've been meaning to contact them more, but frankly we haven't. It's our own fault. We are uploading stuff onto Odyssey though, which is probably where this will be going afterwards as well, because it's a Thursday stream. So that was all. This is what happens around. We lose it. Anyway, today's about gardening. The best thing of all. I suppose, kind of. It makes food, and food is the best thing of all. I've just put the link to that into chat. Hopefully it goes up to DLive. It did not go onto DLive, nor onto Twitch rather, but that isn't that big of a deal. As you can see, we've got the planting timetable, and that is what we will be following along today with, because it is January, February, or like late January, early February, and late February is what we will be looking at. It's all keyed up and color-coded. We've got the blue, which is growing under lights and all of that. And for anyone asking why isn't it on the screen, the answer is very simple. Something is very, very strange about the latest Chrome update, and it's broken how it interacts with Restream. For once, there's an issue with Restream, and it isn't actually Restream's fault. It's a bit of a novelty, but I suppose stuff happens. Do you have anything to say before we get started, Andrew?
No, I'm ready to get going.
Good. Now that we've got all the waffling out of the way with. It is the perfect time of year, apparently, to start off your globe artichoke. I personally do not like globe artichoke. I think they're rather weird. I don't really understand the purpose of buying some sort of plant which the entire purpose is you strip away 90% of it just to eat the bit in the middle. Some people enjoy that. I don't really get it. It makes no sense to me, but some people do. It is also the perfect time of year to be planting up your aubergine, your broad beans, and your runner beans, or your French beans, rather. Apologies, I can read. Occasionally. Not a massive fan of aubergine either, it must be said. But the broad beans and French beans, definitely. And the best place to be buying those, we've got a bunch of seed companies. This is going to take a while because I'm on my laptop. I don't have my usual 2-screen setup. Such is life. There we go. If you want to buy your beans and your peas and all of that sort of stuff, just seeds in general, look for the heritage varieties. Talk about that quite often. Restream is going bloody weird. Anyway, go buy stuff from there.
I'll have to look at those seed companies. I haven't. I've come across the Chiltern one. I think Jonathan's bought us them before, but the other ones, I haven't looked at them before.
I haven't come across them either.
what I'd like to buy is some Johnson's sprouting seeds. For that kitchen sprouter I've got. Something I want to try it because I haven't tried that before. So see if I actually like the things.
I haven't come across these companies either. These were new to me today, or at least the Real Seeds, Heritage Seeds, and Garden Organic. They are new ones for me today. I think Google's kind of changed something on the algorithms, and they're allowing smaller companies up to the top.
All right.
Bit of an unusual move for them.
I'll have to see if they sell those sprouting seeds.
But you can certainly give it a go. I would imagine that any sort of seed could become a little sprout.
Yeah, but you've got to make sure that they're not messed about with, because you're cutting the life cycle so short. You can't be if they've got any like pesticides or whatever inside them, if they're treated. It's not going to have time to work their way out of the plant, and which means you're going to be eating it.
Which is something that I never really thought of until you brought it up on the stream that we did about it. I thought it was bloody interesting. It's certainly something that people would overlook because you don't really think of seeds having stuff put on them, even though it's common sense that they would.
Yeah. Has anyone in the chat tried any sort of seed sprouts?
I know Green Dragon has. He mentioned it during that stream. Hasdak started his potatoes under LED lighting last year. How did that go? He's planning on turning his T4 into a shed. I don't know what a T4 is. Do you have any idea what a T4 is?
No. Do you mean bean shoots? No, seed sprouts. I don't know how you describe them. I suppose what you do is you get these seeds that you do it with. I think there's mung beans, alfalfa. I think that's one of them. Sunflower seeds, things like that. I think you soak them overnight, and then you put them in some sort of container, seed sprouter, or even a jar. You can make it out of a jar with a bit of cheesecloth on top and a rubber band to seal it. And then you just leave them there. I think you water them occasionally, make sure there's no stagnant water in. And after 3 to 5 days, you can eat them. So they're very, very, very early on in the life cycle. So they're germinated seeds. That's what I mean by them.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
It is also apparently the perfect time of year to be starting your carriage, along with various other hardy roots, which is good. Because these are the things that we're going to need to start growing and storing, or at least attempting to store. This year, I think, is a great year to start growing these things, basically just to have a faff around.
Yeah, just do it. Try it out. Make your mistakes now.
Exactly. Make mistakes now while the times are still good. And then at the end of the day, if we're completely wrong and everything is perfectly fine, doesn't matter. You've learned a skill, you've at least attempted it. Didn't work, such is life.
And the fruit and veg that you grow tastes so much better than anything you'd buy in a supermarket, by orders of magnitude.
Absolutely, especially with things like fruit, strawberries, for example. Having a strawberry that's come straight off the bush, so good. I mean, it's still warm with the sun, as opposed to a horrid, mangy little thing that you're buying out of Tesco. The main thing I think a lot of people are going to want to grow will be potatoes. Because they're hardy, we eat a lot of these things. I found a bunch of buckets the other day, and for whatever reason, I can't find them again. But these buckets were extremely cheap. They were about £2, and they were big buckets, I should say. They were £2 for the 30-litre buckets. The best ones I can find now are about £3.50-ish a bucket. I will hunt around, because I'm bloody determined to find these things once again. In the meantime, these are the best buckets that I've been able to find. They are properly sized. They are heavy little sons of guns. And as a result, getting little pallet lifters and move them around will probably be quite useful. I've just popped it on screen, Joe, if you don't mind. She does mind, apparently. Anyway, as I was saying, these things at the moment, they're the big black buckets, and you can put potatoes into there. You can dump a load of soil into there as well, and they grow away quite happily. There are loads and loads and loads and loads of videos of people growing these sort of things out of there, growing potatoes out of these buckets. So it definitely works. In the meantime as well, you have other things that you're able to do with them, like through the rest of the year. These aren't just growing buckets. You can actually use them around the garden to do stuff. It would be quite interesting to know if you could convert them into the little compost buckets, I suppose, like little worm buckets. Viviculture, whatever the hell it's called. Do you know what I mean, Andrew?
No.
See, we're about as good as each other here. I don't know anything about gardening. Andrew knows a hell of a lot more about me because he's actually read a book on it. And Joe is much like me. She doesn't know anything about gardening either.
I'm a novice. I didn't post that link because for some reason it didn't appear on YouTube.
Which link?
The link that you asked me to post to DLive.
Oh, strange. I think it's gone weird on mine. I'm not sure why.
If you want to put it in the chat, I can.
If you don't mind, yes, please.
Yeah, the book that Jordan's mentioned that I've read is called Indoor Edible Garden by Zia Alloway. Zaya, I don't know. But it's very good. All about different plants, fruit, veg, herbs, etc. that you can grow indoors.
And by indoors, do you mean in a greenhouse or just in the house?
No, in the house. It's actually very surprising what you can grow. Now, it depends upon where you're going, the location within the house that you plan on putting these plants, and the amount of light you can get in. But there's all sorts you can grow. You can even grow things like oranges in there.
I don't know. Do you grow an orange indoors? But like in an orangery or just in your front living room?
No, actually inside your house. I'm trying to find it now.
Please do. I'm interested.
Cape gooseberries, that's another thing. Pineapple guavas. Yeah, peaches and nectarines. It really is surprising. I mean, these ones are going to be harder to do.
Oh, absolutely. As opposed to something like chives or mint or whatever.
Yeah, here you go. Oranges. So it says the best indoor varieties are sweet orange, mandarin orange, kumquat, calamondin. So yeah, it's just in a big pot. So there's nothing too extravagant about it. But
I have never ever thought of growing an orange indoors. That's genuinely blown my mind.
Oh, there's all sorts. There's all sorts in this book.
I would have thought something like that would need so much sunlight that it just wouldn't cope with it indoors.
Well, it will probably need a lot of sun. Yeah, for a sunny room.
Must be bloody sunny. Green Dragon just mentioned about free bucket sort of things. If you're able to get these things for free, definitely do. We're probably going to be covering free stuff in a moment when we get onto compost. Because now is also a great time of year to be building compost bin or anything along those lines. Because you can buy them, but making them is, well, it is definitely cheaper. But I would also suggest it would be better because then you're going to be able to put it into an area of your garden that you otherwise wouldn't go into. I agree with onions, beetroot and cabbage. They can be pickled and preserved. Definitely agree with that. I'm not a massive, I despise beetroot, so I personally wouldn't grow it. But things like onions and cabbage, definitely. And as I said, we can start planting cabbage already. We've got the summer cabbage coming out towards late February. So that's in a month's time. What was the other thing? Beetroot. When can beetroots start being planted? Beetroots, actually, end of March. So we've still got tons and tons of time before we need to start worrying about those sort of things. Onions, the earliest you can plant onions is actually now. Now is a great time to be planting onions, apparently. Never realised. You can be planting them now, basically all the way up through to about May. And then you're going to be getting yourself a harvest from June, basically to the end of the year. I like this. People should name a vegetable and see when you can plant the thing. That's how we should do this. David says, don't want to diss the growing of tropical fruits, but we have great weather for some stuff. Apples, for example. Mint is another thing that grows exceptionally well.
Yeah, I'd like to try growing peppermint and then making it into peppermint tea.
That would be interesting. I've thought about growing chamomile this year. Grow up some Roman chamomile and then just make a bunch of chamomile tea. I'm not entirely sure how well the drying process will go because this country doesn't really get hot enough. But, you know, people have been drying stuff for years and years and years. Might just take a little longer, but it'll be fine.
Can you put it in the oven? Like on a very low heat?
I think I might dry it out a bit too much. But certainly just popping them outside or something, that'll work. Or put him on the table. I don't know. I'll work it out and let people know how it goes. We should definitely get a mint version of this. Because at this moment in time, all I've got is, you know, vegetables, as people can see. Vegetables and a couple of bits of fruit. If we had a herb one, we could also add into that things that you can do with it. So as you just said, peppermint for peppermint tea. Lots of people will be doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, because I think one of the problems that I'm going to have with the herbs that I've growing is I don't tend to use them in my day-to-day cooking. So if you've got a few recipes that you can try them in, you've probably got more of an incentive to actually give them a try.
Exactly. And as I said earlier on, if it doesn't work, you don't like it or whatever, no big deal. Dig it out, give it to somebody else, or, you know, compost it.
Well, it's a learning experience. It's worth just trying it out and learning about the process.
Exactly. I fundamentally believe most things come down to a handful of basic concepts. And once you've actually nailed down those basic concepts, you can do a hell of a lot more. Because really, what's the difference between growing mint and growing chives, for example? It's exactly the same thing. You pop around, you tend to as you need to, no worries. Once you've got that going, suddenly doing things like carrots, or I don't know, slightly more complicated vegetable like Brussels sprouts, I have no idea. It's not daunting anymore because you're used to doing it with this other thing which just wants to grow like a bloody weed.
Yeah, I've got some parsley growing. I've got 4 in a little 3-inch or just under 3-inch pot on my windowsill. They've gone a bit odd. The stems are very thin and they're bending over, and they've got 3 true leaves on each one. Apart from one where I accidentally, while watering it, I sort of pulled the head off.
What on earth do you mean by real leaves or true leaves?
True leaves. Well, when a plant grows, they've got like the first leaves. I can't remember what they're called now. Cotyledons, I think the way that it's pronounced, perhaps. and then you have your true leaves that come after that. So for example, if you Google parsley, the leaves that you'll see that are distinctive to parsley, those are the proper leaves. So those are the true leaves.
Oh, okay. Right. I see what you mean. 1 minute. I'll just bring this up on screen. Okay, I'd never heard of this before, but as soon as I saw it, I understood. While you were describing it, I was like, what have you been smoking? Yeah, but now I see it.
You see, there's the classic leaf shape at the bottom.
There you go.
Those are the first leaves. As I say, I think they're called cotyledons.
This is what happens when you read books. You become smart. You know things. I never knew this. Is this all plants or is this just specific to parsley?
Oh, that's interesting. I did have 17 in the pot at first. Well, the thing is, there's so many of the seeds, even in the tiny pack that I've got, that you just try it out and live and learn.
Exactly, just bumble along. That's how I like to do stuff.
I think it's curled parsley, the ones that I've got.
Next, we were getting onto compost. Before we get into compost, I want to get onto another topic. If you're going to be doing stuff in buckets, never heard it called this, but I put it in, and this is what came up. If you're going to be doing stuff in buckets, it makes sense to get yourself one of these little pallet moving things. You may put these down in a place, and for the best of intentions, think, yeah, that'll work. I won't ever need to move those again. It hasn't come up on screen. Apologies. You're sitting there thinking, what is this idiot talking about? I'm still looking at these weird coffers on leaves.
Well, I like pronouncing it as coplodons, even if it might not be correct. It does sound a bit like a dinosaur. So.
It does. As I was saying, if you've got big, heavy pots and what have you, just buy one of these. You'll always find a use for it. I have one of these for a completely different thing, and I've actually used it a number of times. Ironically, only once for the purpose that I originally bought it for. And by this, obviously, I mean whatever the hell this is. Okay, Volvo, good job. But no, yeah, little pallet trap, whatever the hell these are called. If you're moving heavy stuff around, don't worry about it. Just get one of these, save your back. All is good. Much easier. There's no reason to make it hard. Moving on from that, though, we've got compost. We're going to need some compost, and I think it is better to make compost as opposed to buy it. Certainly a lot cheaper, and beyond that, much more fun. You can make compost bins, and they look like that. And as you can see, they're about 30 odd quid. They go up in price and various other bits and bobs. Or you can make yourself a compost bin. These you can buy for free, or you can make for free rather. All you need to pay for, obviously, is the screws. Why wouldn't you do that? Even if it only lasts a couple of years, you'll easily be able to fix it. But by its very nature, you're able to fix it very easily. But beyond that, even if after a couple of years it knackers itself out, just get some more free wood and do it again. Have you ever done anything with pallets, Andrew?
No, I've never done any composting. Not yet.
Not just composting, but just anything. Have you ever built anything out of pallets?
No, I don't think I have, actually.
I haven't either. Apart from one thing, actually, it's only slightly true. The lid on my compost bin is made out of pallets. For years, I've heard people say, make stuff out of pallets. It's free. It's easy to find, blah, blah, blah. Just go down to the industrial sites and ask and all the rest of that. It's fine and dandy. Many people don't want to do that, myself included. Going around just asking people for some free pallets, it doesn't sit properly, does it? It feels a bit weird. Hey, little potato going on. I'll look up that. What you can do is on Gumtree, and I would imagine Craigslist over in the US and here, you can find the freebies section. And on the freebies section, people list off everything that they have for free. The clue is in the name. Amongst those, you will find a ton of pallets. Just a load of them. I saw one geezer giving away 1,000 pallets near me. What exactly he was doing with 1,000 pallets, I don't know, but he had them and he was giving them away. If I had a vehicle that was suitable for picking them up, I would have gone down and just taken 20 or 30 of them and popped them over in the trees somewhere. What is this hay bale potatoes? Ooh. That's a really good idea. I can infer from this, I don't know for certain. I would imagine basically you just stuff it full of compost and you put some straw around the edge and you just build it into a massive tower. and then each individual layer you can have potatoes growing out of the side, well, like the potato stem growth, I should say. That is a really good idea. So that would basically make, I have no idea, let's say 3 or 4 pots worth of potatoes in the space of 1 pot.
I'm just looking to see if I could find in the book whether you can grow potatoes indoors, but it doesn't look like it.
It sounds a little bit like trying to grow wheat indoors. I don't know, that doesn't seem great. See, Bazooka Joe's got it. He's built a fence out of pallets. It must be said, the horrible little bloody fences that you buy. You know those stupid ones with the exceptionally thin wood that's kind of slatted? Just go ahead, try and describe that in light. 1 minute. This sort of bloody fence, these panel fences.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I meant. They are just awful. Just awful. I don't know who invented these things. They are the flimsiest pieces of just hot garbage any ever invented. We have one, and for whatever reason, the landlord insists on repairing it as opposed to just doing it properly and putting in a proper bloody fence. Every 2 years, this fence breaks because a tree that is next to it is bashing against it. It must be costing a bloody fortune to keep repairing it and keep just putting a new bloody panel in, as opposed to doing the job properly and putting in a proper fence with a little cutout. Or alternatively, just snipping off the branch, but for some reason they won't do that either. Anyway, we've got bashing my landlord as per usual. Another thing you can do is some worm compost, which I wanted to bring up for one specific reason. That does not work. Give me a moment. That has not worked either. God damn it. Okay, that link isn't going to work. Moving on. Apparently, obviously no. Apparently, you're meant to avoid orange rinds and other citrus fruits because they're too acidic. I've never really had that issue. I do agree with the fruit flies. Fruit flies love anything along those varieties. They're not a massive fan of just general sort of peelings. But for whatever reason, the orange rinds, they really attract the fruit fly. So maybe for that reason, if nothing else, avoid those. But, you know, just pop them in, cover them up, they'll be fine. Now, the thing that I really wanted to talk about tonight was the no-till. Do you know anything about no-till gardening, Andrew?
No.
This was brought up a couple of weeks ago. Donny Armour brought this up. And I'd heard of it before, but I was never really into the idea of it. The basic gist behind no-till gardening makes perfect sense. You have your garden. You're basically just trying to replicate nature as best as you possibly can. Nature obviously doesn't have shovels. It doesn't have anything of that variety to turn the soil over, so why are you doing it? On the face of it, it makes perfect sense.
I think I might have heard something like that before. In the idea that you don't dig up the soil, you don't till the soil so that and release all the carbon, is it? You know, into the atmosphere, or expose all the soil.
Oddly enough, that is an argument for it. I've heard that argument as well. I've heard that argument because I live on a farm that does engage in this activity. On a commercial scale, or at least a commercial agricultural scale, I think it's complete and utter rubbish. My own eyes can look out across the field. I can see that the yield is through the floor. I can see that it is flooding like nobody's business and everything else. I'm perfectly content to put that down to the fact that all they're doing is one aspect of it. because upon looking into it, I found out a number of things. For example, you're meant to put in things like cover crops. And cover crops are basically, as they sound, they are crops that you pop in, they completely cover the surface. Eventually they die down, or you plant over them, they die down, blah, 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 whatever. It mulches back into the earth. This farm is not doing it. It's not doing anything like it. And I think that's why it is struggling in the way that it is. So that's on them. But reading these articles and looking into it a bit more, watching a bunch of YouTube videos, I've actually changed my opinion on no-till gardening quite a lot. I think for somebody just starting gardening, this is the thing to do. I would love Chat's opinion on this.
Is this the same thing where you allow pigs to root around to naturally churn it all up?
But no, the point of no-till gardening is you don't do any of that at all. That is certainly something that you can do, especially in orchards. They do that a lot in orchards. Although some places they also put ring through the pig's nose to stop them doing exactly that. So I'm not entirely sure about that. I'm speaking with authority. I most certainly don't have. I'm glad to see that Donning Armour agreed with me. You cover the ground and let the fungus do the work. David says no-till gardening stops soil degradation, therefore needing less fertilizer. Definitely. The entire point of the no-till gardening is basically you allow a natural soil layer to form on top that is completely undisturbed, and it has all the roots that were from old plants and little funguses and what have you that's growing in amongst it. Yeah, so I was reading Jonathan's comment. I was trying to pass it out while speaking. It was rather different. It has all the existing structures from the plants within it holding the soil together. And because you're doing things like cover planting and all the rest of that, it helps fix things like nutrients into it, like nitrogen, for example, which isn't a nutrient, but it helps fix these things back into the soil properly as they're meant to be. Jonathan says, the new digs theory is based on more mycelium in the ground, which is basically the little mushroom roots. And then Roy Bob said the point of it is no weeding, which is always a good thing. Because one of the main problems with gardening, or the main objection behind it, is the amount of weeding you have to do. You know, the amount of time it takes to maintain a garden. Well, while last year a lot of us were at work for one reason or another, hopefully this year we won't be. We'll see how that goes, who knows. But we don't really want to spend hours upon hours upon hours every single day out in the garden digging up some bloody geraniums, do we? That's boring, if nothing else, let alone hard bloody work. So we want to come up with different ways of doing stuff. This being one of them. There was a couple of interesting lines in this article. I haven't read through the entire thing yet. If you want to read it, I'm going to put a link to it in chat. Probably only going to go up on YouTube because reasons. Yep, god damn it. Can somebody put that on D-Live for me? Which link was I looking for specifically? Where did I say it was? Oh, you do. I'll just read it. There we go. Scroll up. We look at that. Somewhere in this article, it says it's a new year, and many of us may be gardening for the first time. One of the main barriers to gardening is time, having time to weed, plant, prune, pick, and store, clean, etc. This is not their writing. This is mine. It's absolutely horrific. A lot of what we do in the garden is unnatural. Plants want to live. Soil wants to be healthy. We don't need chemicals to do this sort of thing. It was just something that they pushed really, really hard back in the 50s because they could make some money out of it. And the article goes on to say, the secret behind any no-till garden lies in regular mulching with organic matter. Mulches cover the soil surface, protecting it from erosion, locking soil moisture, and suppressing weeds. As they rot down, they add fertilizer to the while at the same time improving its structure without the need to dig. In no-dig gardening, mulching replaces digging. So basically, for all intents and purposes, rather than continuously dig into the soil and turn it over and over and over and over, you're just building layer upon layer upon layer of healthy, well, compost, I suppose, healthy mulch on top of itself. So yeah, if I was to start growing this year, which I will, probably, I would definitely start doing this sort of thing. We then get into a slightly different subject, because you mentioned ground cover and that sort of thing. I'm not sure entirely how applicable this is and how many people have gardens of this size or land areas of size, but if anybody, for whatever reason, has over an acre of land, Cotswolds grass seeds, they provide information on how to sow red clover over a large area. I've not come across this anywhere else, and I actually think this could be quite useful because there's going to be, maybe not a lot of people, but there's certainly going to be an element of the population who have a lot of stuff, a lot of land, and want to start getting into this sort of thing, even if it's just currently used for things like little pasture for horses and what have you. So there you go. I think we've gone over the boring part of today's stream. I apologise for it being boring, but it's necessary. It's mildly interesting at the very least, I hope. Do you have anything to add on the soil and the growing and all of that, Andrew?
No, I don't. This is
I don't blame you.
completely new to me.
I don't blame you at all. What we do, I'm probably going to turn this into a thing. I don't know whether to do it as a PDF or what. I know you wanted to do a gardening industry overview, didn't you, Andrew?
Yeah, among many.
Well, among another, probably about 52 knowing you, who knows? But yeah, I'll send you over any sort of information you need on that. I'll certainly help you with that. Because I think the gardening one is going to end up being one of the bigger ones, especially over time as we start adding bits and bobs onto it. I have no idea how you want to structure it, but it just working on the basic theory, there's so much going on with gardening. It's not surprising there's so many books available on it.
Well, we could perhaps split it up into indoor and outdoor, and then focus on maybe the easiest three plants of each type. So things like vegetables, fruits, herbs. Maybe go into some other categories, and maybe give some advice on how to do them just to get started.
I think that sounds awesome. However you want to handle it, it's completely up to you. I'll pitch in as needed. I do genuinely find this quite interesting, even though I just kind of knocked this together today. There's a lot of really, really good information on this sort of thing. For example, one of the things that Chiltern Seeds have, I've never come across this before, but I think it's a wonderful idea. It is... Not on that window. Not on that window. I've misclosed the stream.
Yeah, don't do that.
That would be really bad. It is this. It is seeds for pollinators. I think, considering how much pressure we all know bees and what have you are under, especially this year, given the government has reneged on a promise. They said they were going to ban a certain chemical, a certain fertilizer, whatever it was, pesticide, and they did ban it for a year and then decided, no, this year we need it again. So yet another attack on bees and pollinators in general. I think focusing on this would be really interesting. But yeah, they have a whole list of stuff, a whole list of plants, all sorts of seed, that are both pretty and also very, very good for pollinators, which is the sort of thing we need, especially if you're doing things such as tomatoes. If you're growing tomatoes, you can put them indoors and they will grow, but you're going to need to agitate them a little bit in order to get the pollen moving around so they can create their own little tomatoes.
I think it's the F1 seeds that are to be avoided if you want to have them pollinated.
Absolutely. Only get heritage ones where you can and when you can. Obviously, certain things you don't really need to worry quite as much. For example, well, these here, I would imagine, these pollinator ones. I wouldn't worry too much if these are heritage seeds, purely because their purpose is not really to feed you. Their purpose is to feed the bees. And there is a bit of a difference. We really care what goes into our body, as we should. What goes into their body is also important, but it's more important that they eat, basically. So things like this, apparently, it's common sense, I suppose, actually, anyone who's ever been around them. But the little tube flowers, so things like foxgloves, that shape, but they've got like little fingers that stick off of them, and they're hollow.
Yeah.
Those sort of things, they're excellent for bees. Because the bee gets to go inside, and I suppose it's still warm and comfy in there while it eats. I have no idea, but they enjoy those apparently. They also see purple flowers best, which is something I learned today.
I'm just reading Green Dragon's comment that you've put up.
I just saw that as well.
Red clover. Can we pull that up to see what that looks like?
I didn't know you could eat red clover. Absolutely. Red clover is bloody everywhere around me. I've not spelled clover correctly because I was not looking at what I was doing. There you go, that's what it is.
I've recently tried to grow both beetroot, which was a complete failure. It didn't put down roots. So every time you filled it up with water, they just end up going everywhere, and then they'd settle down and no leaves got wet. It was a right nightmare. And at the moment, I'm trying to grow basil and chard, but the chard looks exactly like the beetroot. So I'm not too hopeful with it.
Look, it might get there. Just give it hope.
Let's hope so.
But yeah, that's what red clover is. That is one of the cover crops that no-till gardeners seem to like. I've never thought of eating it. As I said, I've got loads of it around me, but I've also got a pasture out front, and apparently this is what was always used. This here is extremely common in any sort of pasture land because, I suppose it naturally wanted to be there anyway, and it was very easy to propagate, to get more seeds off of it, and to spread them around and help feed the cattle. I like what Danford has said. There are 3 seeds in your weekly shopping. Today I've thrown chili seeds and some old garlic under a bit of soil. If they don't grow, I've lost nothing. I will be careful when it comes to shop-bought seeds, mainly because, as Andrew said about the F1 varieties, because you won't get a true copy of them. But sometimes they do list on them what the name of them is.
Just reading Green Dragon's comment. At least it's not just me.
Donny Armour says, as far as he knows, only bumblebees can pollinate tomato plants. I'm not sure about that. I know commercially they shake them as opposed to having bees. They do also have bees, but they mainly just shake the things, and that helps. And you're recommended to do that in your own garden as well, especially if you grow them under glass.
Just a heads up for people who are planning on growing basil as microgreens. They are, I'm gonna butcher this pronunciation, mucilaginous seeds, which basically means that when they're wet, they produce a sort of mucus.
Oh no!
A mucus cover around the seed to protect them.
That sounds awful.
Thankfully, I knew this before I started. I put them in because they look absolutely disgusting. They're like spiders' eggs, and they're all gooey as well, and they stink.
Well, they smell off.
Well, they only smell if you stick your snout in them. But
what do they smell of?
Oh, it's just goo. So you've been warned.
Okay, so if you grow them, they're going to end up looking a bit like tapioca, and they're going to smell. Are you excited to eat them?
Well, I've got some basil growing in soil, and they've started to get the first true leaves now. So they look
Well,
a lot.
another one with these little weird Cacophonorosaurus leaves.
What, cotyledons.
That was the one.
No, thanks, Jonathan. You were a right nightmare trying to pronounce the ukulele. I forgot it now. Quickly move on.
Mucilaceous.
Get an N in there somewhere.
Mucilaceous.
Oh,
Green Dragon says his basil microgreen didn't smell. What have you done though, Andrew?
but did you stick your snout in them though? Because they don't
How
smell.
close did you get to it?
Well, my
The fact that you answered that with "well" it doesn't bode well. Let's put it that way.
well, my nose didn't get stuck in them. Put it that way.
Did your nose touch them?
No.
Did your nose get very close to touching them?
No, but they're inside the rim of the container.
That would have been a big container. I also have one other thing to blow chat's mind with. These really will be quite mind-blowing. I've actually found a BBC article that is actually worth anything, even though it isn't technically the BBC. This here is an excellent little article. I'm going to pop the link in chat. Or to be precise, I'm going to send a link to Joe, and Joe can pop into chat for me. Thank you, love. This is a really, really good article about the best plants for bees. And it breaks it down so that, first off, all the reasons as to why and the sort of stuff it likes. There you go. See, they like purple flowers. Give them purple. Makes them happy. Happy bees are good bees. But more importantly, it breaks it down into the seasons. So the sort of plants that you can start growing for any given season. That way they always have food. Bees are really, really important to us. They are, at a commercial level, they're being abused like nobody's business. Pun not intended. The commercial bees do not have a great life, unfortunately. And things like farmers and what have you really aren't doing a lot to help them either. Why the numbers of bees are going through the floor. As a comment earlier on said, I believe it was Rob D. The bees produce about 2/3 of our food, at least, if not more. If they start to have a bad time of it, on top of everything else that's going on in the world, we're going to be facing some very, very serious issues. So at the very least, you can kind of protect yourself and your own local neighborhood by planting these sorts of things. Because then you're going to give them food throughout spring and then throughout summer. Obviously in summertime, they're fine and dandy. But later on in the year, through to November, is when they really need a bit of help. So planting this sort of stuff will help them. I have no idea what any of this is. Cornflower, I believe, is a little blue flower, isn't it? Oh, yes, it is. It's actually a very, very pretty flower. So there you go. Flowers, I'm not a massive fan of them. I've never really gone out of my way to plant them because I think they're kind of useless. But at the same time, I can appreciate these sort of things. Bees and that need help.
I always love the look of these flowers. I mean, there's so many really odd looking things. I mean, I've seen some of them that look like some sort of orbital laser, which I quite like.
What? An orbital laser?
Yeah.
Like the Death Star?
Something like that. Oh, I can't remember its name.
Jonathan will be able to tell us. I think I know the ones you mean. They're like a big. They're about the size of your fist, aren't they? It's round ball.
No, not like that. It's I don't know how you describe it. It's more like a triangle. At least the inside of it is.
I have absolutely no idea. I'm not a gardener, nor do I do flowers, as I said. Unless I can eat it, I've not shown any interest in it up until now. But I do think that needs to change. I think a lot of people are kind of in my boat.
I'm pretty sure I've got the picture on my other OS, which don't help. But I'll see if I can find it and post it on Discord.
Is it large?
It's just a normal sized flower.
Unbelievably useless answer. Is it large? It's just a normal sized flower. Is it like that?
No, it was orange, the one I saw. I'm giving you perfect information here. It's like a triangle inside, but it might not be. It's a normal size and it's orange.
I mean, that is a bloody triangle. Look at that. I wish I could draw a triangle that well. There's only 3 lumps on it, for starters.
I found out by this book that you can actually eat some of these flowers. So
you can eat a remarkable number of flowers.
So there's even more reason to grow them.
Yeah, I was quite amazed. Originally, it was just chefs being a bit poncy. It was, wasn't it? Let's be honest about it. When you started putting flowers onto things, everyone sat there and thought, these frigging idiots, what are they doing? But it turns out that no, you can eat quite a number of them. Yeah, so you didn't help Jonathan either. He hasn't a damn clue. Ian said, type in orange flower. Anyway, chat, I'm back. The screen sharing and all of that jazz, that's now done. The bulk of tonight is over with. Any gardening related stories? I've just waffled on for the last hour and a bit, so Andrew, you can take over for a moment. You can waffle about your weird triangular orange flower.
I don't think it is an orchid. I'll see if I can find it and I'll post it. On it's a really nice looking thing. You do realise by the time I find it, it's going to look nothing like what I've described it as, but it is orange.
First off, it's going to be square.
Yeah.
Secondly, it's going to be a different colour. Is it like a McVitie's ginger nut orange, or is it a normal orange?
I don't know. It's just orange. I'll see if I can. Oh yeah, you type in orange flower.
I don't know why that made me laugh so much.
Yeah, type in orange flower. We'll see if we can.
Orange flower, okay.
This stream doesn't end until we've identified this flower. It's a vital.
What? That's a what? I don't even know how to say that. Okay, right, let's take a look. Ooh, I mean, you put in B-O-U-G and it was the first thing to come up. This does not sound anything like what you described. I'm just giving everyone fair warning. If this is it, I'm actually going to rage quit.
Bougainvillea. That doesn't ring a bell.
That's orange flower. That is not what I put in Google. Thank you very much. There you go. Is that it?
No, it's orange.
I'm going to find this orange flower. There you go. It's kind of triangular. Give it a bit of a haircut.
Pretty sure the inside of it were triangular. The outside looked like normal flour.
Wait a minute. Did I just see somebody criticise me for clownbird? It is. English Bird said it's going to be the clownbird of flowers. Look, my description of a clownbird was dead on.
Passion flower?
Could be. They're like little triangular things inside.
Oh no, it's not orange. But it looks like, I think it's like that. Type in orange passion flower.
I'm not sure they come orange. I've never seen them that way. No, they don't. Are you sure it was orange?
Yes. Although I might be thinking of another flower, so we'll get to the bottom of it. Just
like what gorilla has asked the best question of the night? It's gone away. What gorilla has asked? Evening. What crop is the easiest to grow with the best yield? That is a damn good question. I would say, even though I don't much like it, I would say potatoes. What do you reckon, Andrew?
I have no idea, but from my own limited experience of growing various, well, a few things in microgreens, I'd have to say radish microgreens. They're going forever. You get sick of them.
Yeah, how long did they go on for?
Oh, I think about 4 days. I'm eating a lot twice a day. So,
yeah, I like the question. What, best plant to grow, basically. I would say definitely potatoes. And the reason for that, I would say, in part comes down to the storage of them. Potatoes are easy to store. There's no great secret to it. You just pop in a sack. All is good. If you make a little a root cellar if you really want to. And you can do that quite easily, even without digging into the ground. You can just get a little crate, which you can make up out of some free pallet wood and a hinge for the top, obviously. You fill it up with some straw when you put your potatoes in, and more straw, more potatoes, and so on and so forth. You just layer it up. That'll work wonders. That'd actually be a bloody good little project to do on the Make Do and Mend stream.
you know what I'd like to try and grow? I'd like to try and grow alternatives to the usual things that we buy from a supermarket. So instead of just normal carrots, try some different colour ones.
Yeah, like the original purple ones.
Yeah, and I think there's yellow ones. And try things like that, and try some chard, the different colour ones of those, and just see what they taste like compared to, the ones you're used to.
I fully agree. That to me is the best part about growing them at home. You're no longer just stuck into buying the same 2 or 3 varieties that you take potatoes, for example. Realistically, in this country, we have probably 4 varieties of potato that you can buy out of a supermarket. Meanwhile, you go onto these seed sites and the list just doesn't end. They seem to have like an untold number of bloody potatoes.
I think we might have, Jonathan. I think it is the passion flower. Passiflora cerurea. That rings a bell, passiflora. So yeah, it will be a passion flower of some description. See, it looks like if you zoom into one of them,
You said that literally just as I went.
It looks like an orbital laser.
It does a bit. I don't disagree. It looks like something's blasting the atmosphere. And obviously, because it's me, the first one I click on is, can I eat the fruit produced by my passion flower? True to form, I suppose. Should probably get onto storage for a minute, because I think this is damn important. This definitely is something that we should be doing this year. We should just be basically faffing around trying to work out how to store food.
Yeah, try and preserves as well.
Exactly. Just to try and make it. It might not work well. You might only get a couple of things. I agree with Bazooka Joe. I think a stream about drying and storage might be good. We do have a PDF on this exact subject.
And I've done an overview on it.
Indeed, you have. We've got a lot of stuff on this because it is really, 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 really important. Like top-notch level importance. Here is the food storage guide. And I'm going to go and find the one that you did on preserves. Mushrooms is still going great guns on Gab, by the way, which is remarkable considering I still can't get into Gab. I haven't been able to get onto Gab since a certain event happened over in the US, which we aren't allowed to speak about.
Just out of curiosity, has anybody in the chat actually tried growing any mushrooms?
Yeah, I want to know. I really want to give it a go. I think it sounds bloody interesting. I said to you when we covered that I thought about doing it. And that's basically about as far as it went. And then you covered it, and since then I've really, really wanted to do it. It looks awesome.
Well, I would just try with one of those kits. I think
exactly.
Are the garden centres open at the moment? I'm pretty sure they are.
I think so. I'm not sure. That's a bloody good question, though. Ooh. But because buying a pressure can are good. This is the sort of thing we need to do. To me, a pressure can, I would definitely be saving up to get one of those. We do have somebody who's done it, actually. Yagdrassil says it's easy, you just have to keep it sterile. I will be honest, growing the mushrooms, when I started to look into it a bit, it did seem quite easy. Obviously, it got much more complicated once they started fortifying, whatever the terminology they used, once they basically started breeding their own mushrooms. Do you know much more about this because you did the bloody overview on it? I don't know why I'm talking.
Was there a question there?
Well, the general question was, what was it called when you actually start breeding the mushrooms yourself? When you move away from the kits and you start fortifying the bits and bobs.
When you make so you're not making the actual mushroom spawn, but you're putting the spawn into some medium.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's what it's called, mushroom medium, isn't it?
I don't remember. As I said, you wrote the thing.
Yeah. It's been a while since I did it.
It has been, actually. It was November, 23rd of November. Blimey.
Flipping heck, where does time go?
Well, I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure where the hell January went.
No.
Okay, here it is.
It's a fruiting block. Or the kit has a fruiting block. It's it's just a medium. So you can use grain, plugs, sawdust, coffee beans, things like that.
You'd linked to a couple of other things, but I'm going to pop this into chat because I'm really, really interested in this. I do agree. I'm not entirely sure who it was. I didn't see. I just saw out the corner of my eye. I think it was Daffyd said that it is cheaper to buy it and obviously go and find them out in the wild. But just for the sheer interest of being able to grow this little thing, it's pretty cool. I don't know about anyone else. I find mushrooms much more interesting than normal plants. Just because they're strange. They're weird little things. They grow in the dark. You know? They grow in the dark. They pop their head up above the soil and then they go back down pretty much within the course of a day. They're just weird, interesting, alien little things. Good. Ooh, what was that? Good sites to learn how to forage. What was that? Where'd it go? Like, go on the shroomery to learn how to grow. Fair enough. I have no idea what the shroomery is. The name does not sound terribly trustworthy, it must be said. It sounds very much like something else. Shroomery. Yeah, I did say it sounds very much like something else. It is very much something else. So no, we're not going on the shroomery. If others want to, they're more than welcome to. Look into Grow Cycle, okay? Oh, the Grow Cycle's the oyster mushroom people. I remember coming across it. I believe you linked to them, did you not? Or maybe I came across this fellow on my own accord. I definitely remember watching this video. It was a good video. I do recommend it to people.
It does look familiar, actually.
I'm pretty certain you linked to it, or you may have sent me a video from it. See, when you look at this, how does anything grow in that? That is bloody interesting. Coffee grounds are not the most nutrient thing on planet Earth or anyway, but just growing basically in a massive sock. See, that's why mushrooms are cool. I'm going to put the internet in chat as well. But there you are. That was it. Did you have anything to add on gardening, Andrew?
No, I think we've covered it all.
I think so as well. I think that was a... Considering it's January, let's be realistic. There's not terribly much going on in the garden.
And
There's not much we can talk about.
And bear in mind, we're new to this, so we're...
Exactly. I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. I'm talking as an expert, even though I've not got a bloody clue. The closest I've ever come to any form of gardening is cutting down trees, you know? I'm the idiot with the shovel, and I'm trying to tell people not to use the shovel.
But it's a right rabbit hole that I've noticed. Like,
It is.
the amount of different ways that you can grow plants is fascinating. I mean, things like aquaculture, aeroculture, aquaponics, aeroponics, hydroponics is the one we all know about.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating.
It really is. When I started researching this morning, I thought, okay, gardening. It's not that difficult. There's not going to be that much information. It took me about 4 hours to compile everything. And during that time, I was turning away more stuff than easily 3-4 times more than what I've ended up with. Easily. And it was not because it was bad or incorrect or anything like that. It was just because I already had something that kind of covered it and it was good enough. It is very bloody interesting. And it makes sense because it is something that humans have always done, or at least done for many, many thousands of years. I'm going to bring up aeroponics on the screen so people can have a look at it and see what it is. It is basically, as it sounds, it is growing plants, but you're kind of spraying the root system with water. So the roots stay nice and damp, but they're not absolutely flooded like with hydroponics and aquaponics. I'm not really sure there's a benefit to it. Do you know about
it? No, I don't actually. The aeroponics.
I don't either. I'm actually pretty good when it comes to aquaponics because I looked into aquaponics years and years and years and years ago, long before there were all this information out there on it. Long before. When I first came across it, I was basically reading up on like textbooks that were based upon historical conjecture as opposed to reality, because the Aztecs used to do things like this, or at least I think it was the Aztecs. Certainly one of the South American native tribes used to do this. They used to cut out little channels into rock and divert the water from the fish ponds uphill through the growing beds. and then over time they took out the soil, or they increased it to the extent that the soil washed away, but the plants carried on growing, so they just carried on. They were content with it. I was reading all that sort of stuff.
But I think it's very important to really look into all these different methods and
Absolutely.
try and scale it down to our level. I mean, bear in mind, if we can get ourselves to the stage where we're self-sufficient for food, not only as individuals but as a community, well, then that's a massive amount of power that we've taken away from anybody who would wish to force us to do whatever they want.
Absolutely. Well, food has always been the battleground. Food is what people have always fought over. If you can fortify your food supply, ultimately there's not much anyone else can do.
Well, you control the food, you control water, then you control people.
Exactly.
People need to eat. Everybody needs to eat. So,
water is a really, really interesting thing. We're starting to see that now with China. I don't know if anyone's very up to date on this, but basically China's building a whole bunch of dams in the Tibetan region of China. And what it's doing is stopping the water getting through down to places like Vietnam and Cambodia. We're also seeing a similar situation in Ethiopia and Egypt. The Ethiopians are starting to build a dam which the Egyptians were not terribly happy with. And obviously it's going to interrupt the flow of water down, which is going to influence the agriculture.
Well, it's going to cause wars, that.
Exactly. That's basically what the situation between those two is at the moment. It is causing a big bloody problem. And from my understanding of it, technically neither side is wrong. Technically, the Egyptians are right in that the Ethiopians can't build a dam there, but at the same time, the Ethiopians are correct because they never actually signed agreement in the first place. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, money will change hands with the appropriate people and things will be done. But yeah, it is very interesting. Very, very interesting. Being able to control our own food supply is a massive, massive thing for us.
And then once we've got that sorted, and we've, presuming we've got some sort of physical community, then you start to think about other things as well. Although we've probably done alongside it, but things like power. If you can if you can generate your own electricity, completely, devoid of the grid, well, think how much money you're going to be saving. Plus, it can't be shut off, and that's another bit more power that we get back.
Exactly. Ultimately, every single community should be based that way, even if everything was perfect. Because the way the nation should work is they should work to defend itself, so that if a nation is ever invaded, the invading nation doesn't just have to go along to the nuclear power plant down the road, press the button, turn it off, and then leave half the country in darkness. That doesn't make sense to build a system that way. It's done that way deliberately, fair enough, but okay, weird comment. Ignoring that. Anyway, I believe that is all. Do we have any more questions from chat? Or Andrew, do you have anything you want to say?
No, I think we've covered it.
I think we have as well. And considering, as you said, we've not really done this, we don't really know what we're doing either. I thought it was a bloody good effort. I will never ever lie to chat and pretend that I know more than I do. I genuinely don't. I'm learning just as much as you are. Hopefully you've learned more than you expected. I have no idea, but hopefully so.
Yeah, I'm going to say about Boudica's comment. That's something we definitely want to end up getting into, so we can be self-sustaining with the seeds.
Absolutely. There's no reason we can't be. You think how many seeds come off of a plant? Take something really big and obvious like a melon. One melon, how many bloody seeds are there within that melon? There must be hundreds of them. I don't know what the success rate of them are. I doubt it's 100%, but even if it's 50%, there's still hundreds of seeds in there. That's hundreds of extra plants out of that one bloody melon. It's wonderful. So yeah, that was all. Thank you very much. Roy Bob says Terminator seeds exist, unfortunately. I'm not sure what a Terminator seed is. Have you ever heard of that before?
Nope.
Okay, well, we're looking at whatever Terminator seeds are, and I think this will probably be the subject that we cover next month on the next gardening stream. Because ultimately, it's still, by then, it will still be February. Going into March, going into spring, this is the sort of thing that we need to be thinking about. Sort of thing that we need to do. I will definitely Google it, Roy. I will Google it and I will cover it on the next show. I'll actually write a note. So thank you for that. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us. And yeah, we will see you tomorrow at the normal time. Bye for now.
Goodbye.